Hello, Charlie Steeds. Welcome. Welcome to this episode of Hex Talks.
Thanks for having me, Laurie.
As my amazingly brief introduction might imply or not, who you are and what you've created are both remarkable things in the world of independent film and especially in the horror genre. Charlie Steeds is a producer and director with Dark Tempo Motion Pictures. As a young man with gentle eyes and strong hands, he's created his own horror empire with some 10 feature films, either produced or in production, possibly even more. And I'm a big fan of your films because, like myself, you take a leaf out of Roger Corman's hymn book, and there aren't many filmmakers doing that. So thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing the story of how you built a horror empire.
No worries.
So you're about 27?
Just turned 28 a couple of days ago.
And yet so young and supple looking. It's important to have a high degree of gentle sexual harassment in these videos, Charlie.
Yeah.
It's fashionable, apparently. So when we go back to your first film, or even just before that, what happened? How did you wake up one day and decide, right, I'm going to walk on the treacherous path of nails that is called making a career in independent film?
Well, the good thing, I was lucky because I was so young when I decided I wanted to make movies. I was like 10 years old maybe when I decided I was just going to be hell-bent on being a film director. It was because I just got really interested in movies from, I was obsessed with The Nightmare Before Christmas, and then all Tim Burton movies. I could sort of see all the different Tim Burton films. Through all of them, I could see the style and I could see what a director brings to a movie in terms of not just the visuals, but bringing sort of the same team back and having the same sort of themes and, just being basically the artist and the storyteller. I got to grips with what that was by watching A Nightmare Before Christmas, because even though it's not directed by Tim Burton, because it's claymation, you can see every single element. You can see that somebody's hand done the costumes, the sets, and then so when I watched something like Edward Scissorhands, I could see all that same touch and style going through it, and I realized this is the same guy. So at a really young age, I just decided I'm hell-bent on being a filmmaker. I just said to everyone, I'm going to make films. Eventually picked up a camera. It was from listening to an interview with Quentin Tarantino that he was just kind of just pick up a camera and do it. That old thing, which is still it's the best advice to any wannabe filmmaker, is just pick up the camera and do it. So I did, and basically from the age of maybe 14 to the age of about 20 or so, I just made short film after short film after short film. And they never played festivals or anything like that. I never really had much to do with them apart from chucking them out on YouTube, showing them to friends and industry connections and stuff like that. But I made in total 20 short films, and it was just kind of practice. Practice.
And that's incredible. So early on then, the whole idea of being especially prolific, just making lots of content was an important part of your ethos then as an artist. It wasn't, for example, because a lot of guys or girls, they apply for public money or arts grants, things like that, especially here in the UK, and they might put off making a short film for 2 years or 18 months until all their ducks are in a row. But you were to fuck with that, basically.
I'm very impatient. When the idea hits me, I need to make it now. I need to find a way to get it out there. And also, I've always and still now, I kind of believe in every film. I'm enhancing my skills as a filmmaker. It's I'm not so much interested in, well, I am, but I'm not so much interested in making each film its unique different thing. You could kind of make one perfect film and be done, but I want my life to be, you know, my main passion that I want to always indulge in is filmmaking. So I'm trying to make myself, you know, I'm working on myself. Every movie is learning new skills. I always, you know, it's why still now, like, I specifically want to challenge myself. You know, I could look back at the 10 feature films I've done right now and say, this is this is what I'm strong at. This is where it goes really badly wrong. This is, you know, the type of genre I'm good at. And then I could just lean into that, you know, and make really strong films. But it doesn't interest me. I always gravitate towards, what have I not done? What could go horrendously wrong on the next one, you know? And I'm always trying to make them as different as possible.
And this attitude, which is actually a very unique attitude, because most filmmakers are preoccupied by their legacy, by achieving, you know, masterpieces of art and gaining critical recognition, and you know the things that I've lazily achieved without trying. But you know, for them, can occupy their lives. You know, their obsessions.
Yeah.
So for, for yourself. This ethos that you have now was established right at the start when you were making all these short films. You're like, to hell with this. I'm going to make lots of things. I want, and so if your life then is filmmaking, that's what you enjoy the most.
Yeah.
Then that makes perfect sense. But for a lot of filmmakers, they have a love-hate relationship with film. They're traumatized by the experience of film, but they can't not do it again. And they look to the critics or festivals to try and take the pain away before they go and do it again. And if the pain doesn't go away, they give up, or they cry in the bar at a film festival, as we've seen many times, Charlie, from people we know.
But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, with these short films, you know, like I said, I entered none of them into festivals. I was not making them for like awards or recognition or anything like that. I just knew I was sort of just fine tuning my skills, you know. And when I say I made 20, I mean, they weren't like 2 minutes long and 5 minutes long. Some of them were, I think the longest one was like 50 minutes long, but they averaged usually about half an hour, sometimes 45 minutes. I was basically practicing. And John Carpenter, who is a big inspiration, obviously, as a horror filmmaker, he made a bunch of short films. And in an interview I read with him, he said that, you know, he was practicing with his short films. He said they were kind of long, but he was practicing for feature films. And that's sort of what I was attempting to do with my shorts. I didn't want to make like a neat and tidy 5-minute thing that would sort of go and get me places. It was more a case of, you know, training myself to be able to tell a story over a longer runtime. And that is my passion, really. Is like,
I mean, you were training basically like if you were in the gym, right, and you're weightlifting, you know, with those firm young muscles of yours, those pectorals tensing for the creation of dark tempo motion pictures.
Yeah.
Because most filmmakers would be as insane as to try and build their own like little movie studio, right? I mean, I know I have, but me and you, we're totally fucked, Charlie. I mean, this is because we've done that. But that's the mad genius that occupy our minds. So you know, you made 20 short films. My first short film, if you can call it that, consisted of me getting a flatmate to borrow my stepdad's camera to film me doing like headshot audition type stuff back when I was trying to be an actor, which was miserable when I was young. But unknowingly, or unbeknownst to me, I was actually scrubbing a very important portion of a tape that my stepdad Neil had recorded whilst he was handing out gifts to orphan children in Romania after he'd driven a truck of aid all the way from the UK. So that moment when he was sat with his family putting on a tape, where it comes to the climactic moment when he opens the back of the truck to start handing out all the aid packages to children, and then cuts to me doing all these like sexy poses. Not a good film. Probably not as good as any of your 20 short films. Which, is there a chance we could maybe have one that we could put on Hex Presents at all on the channel?
Potentially. I mean, the problem with all of them is I used music that I don't have copyright to.
Well, if you've got any short at all that you'd like on, then that'd be great. And if so, we'll put a little link that'll appear somewhere around here. So if we go back to your first film, your first feature film, 2016 is the IMDb listing for it. 2015 probably when it was made, maybe. Deadman Apocalypse is the name it has here. So before Deadman Apocalypse, or when you come up to making this film, what was the deal with Dark Temple Motion Pictures? Did you develop that first and then you were like, right, now this is going to go make this film? Or did that come about? And what inspired you to make a feature film? You know, I know you were working towards it, but it takes, you know, it takes a push off the cliff to go the plunge, you know, to actually do a movie.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you. In terms of Dark Temple Motion Pictures, I just, you know, when you start making your short films and then your feature films, you have a little thought like, what should I call my company? You know, what little logo could come up at the beginning? And this used to be something that was really important to me. Like, I was very specific that I wanted a brand, you know, like a specific brand that I was going to build, like you're saying, like building this little movie studio empire. Because I was inspired by things like, you know, all Roger Corman's companies and Charles Band with Full Moon and Empire. And I wanted to have that sort of recognition that when the Empire Studios logo comes up at the start of Charles Band, you know, Empire Pictures and stuff, you know what you're in for, you know, the sort of horror that you're in for. And I wanted that to be what people would feel with my horror films as well. But it used to be on my short films, it was the Devil's Testicle. That was the logo that came up and the name. And then as my short films started to be sort of seen by more people and get much more YouTube views, everyone was sort of saying, oh, the Devil's Testicle, like, you know, maybe we change that. So I came up, I knew that I wanted to change into a more like official brand that was going to be my brand. And so I came up with Dark Temple Motion Pictures, and then it's just sort of become, it's just the brand, you know, this at the start of everything. I mean, maybe in retrospect, I could have just said Charlie Steeds, you know, I could have just plastered my name on everything. Charlie Steeds, that's the brand. But I don't know, I felt that was maybe a bit arrogant or something. I would rather it be Dark Temple, and people, you know, I can then go around and say, you know, look at this Dark Temple and follow Dark Temple, instead of it being, you know, Charlie Steeds, Charlie Steeds. So I think that's where that came from. And there is like a very specific type of a horror that Dark Temple films are, you know, and I in fact, I already now, you know, 5 years into making features, I get, you know, people writing to me in comments on the internet of people who are recognizing Dark Temple and they know what they're going to get. So it's working, you know, it's already sort of paying off the way I wanted it to. But in terms of like how I made that first feature and why, coming out of school, I went to film school to do a degree. I went to the Met Film School, which is in Ealing Studios. And it was a 2-year course. I made some short films there. And then when I graduated, I mean, graduating film school and going out into the real world is like it's horrific. It's just like it's a horrific thing that people have to go through. You know, it's like you kind of get so much support when you're at film school. You know, everyone's sort of championing your talent and saying, you know, yeah, go on, get the degree and make the short films. When it's finished and you're graduated and you're out and you don't have a job, you're just out on your own. You know, and the thing with the film industry is, I mean, people, you can read this anywhere, but, you know, it's kind of like there is no one way in, and, you know, no one's going to sort of come and help you. There's no magical pathway in unless you are connected, which so many people in the film industry are connected, you know, but if you're not...
Especially in the UK as well. So basically, Charlie, like you didn't have any kind of advantage, you know, geographical or connective, really, that could let you into the kind of London system, which in the US the equivalent would be LA.
Yeah, no, I had absolutely no advantage whatsoever and didn't know anybody and kind of didn't get help from anybody, especially not the film school. I mean, the film school connected me with nobody. I came out of film school the same as I was as a teenager, just a teenager wanting to make movies and not knowing anyone. There was one person I knew that kind of did make a difference, which was he is a film producer and former BAFTA chairman, Simon Ralph, who passed away a few years ago. But when I was a teenager making my short films, I knew him through my grandparents. He was just local, lived in their same town, and sort of just as a favor, you know, I was a young, you know, 14, 15-year-old. He was willing to invite me over to his fancy house and sit in his cinema room, and we'd watch my short films together, and he'd kind of critique them and give me some advice, which was helpful. I mean, he never was able to sort of connect me to the industry, if you like, but there is definitely something to be said for there was one of my short films, maybe it was like my 10th or 11th short film, where when it finished, he said, I just have no doubt that you will be a filmmaker, you know, that you've got what it takes, that you're going to be doing something. So to hear that from someone who, you know, this guy produced Roman Polanski's Macbeth and stuff like that, and he would say to me like, so lots of your choices remind me of Polanski and stuff like that. So to hear those types of things as a teenager kind of did fill my head with a lot of hopes, and you think, oh, maybe you know, it's not just a pipe dream.
Yeah.
So that definitely was something that gave me, you know, I don't know, in retrospect, if I hadn't have had him sort of mentoring me, maybe I might have given up. But what I was saying earlier was I'm lucky that at a young age I just blindly went into this profession, because if as a 25-year-old or something I was to look at it all and weigh up my options, I'd be like, no, I'm not going to bother, you know.
I mean, to be an artist in pretty much any field is a bit like, you know, like signing a life of poverty or risk of poverty. You know, it's an up and down journey. It's probably the last occupation anyone's parents wants to hear their kids say that they want to do is to be like a filmmaker or an actor or a musician or anything like that.
Yeah.
And as regards to your film school, when you were there, are any of your fellow students still alive?
Yeah, well, there are a handful of people from the film school who did go on to go and do things in the industry. I mean, some of them were already very well connected, and it tends to be those ones who've gone on to do things, you know.
What a surprise! Yeah. Little bastards.
But I should say connected, but also they are also very talented. They had that lucky combination of connected and being talented. But yeah, so you know,
it does help to get a hand job from God, though. You know, if you want to ascend the rope of success, because you can also be slightly talented or not that talented and still get ahead of those that are. You know, but of course, this is the great thing about independent film, at least, is it's your chance, it's your fighting chance to come back at it. Mm-hmm. And also for those with the nepotistic connections in the US and the UK, those opportunities only really allow for careers. They don't allow you to have production companies per se. Mm-hmm. And that's not good. If you're an artist that is very independent minded like yourself, then, you know, being a director for BBC co-funded Netflix TV series about nurses, you know, in the east side of London is not for you compared to Fishmen, which is a passion that we share. So when we come to Deadman Apocalypse then, so this is like Noob Charlie, but you've already done an epic number of short films, so you know.
Yeah, so I left film school and I was out on my own, and I was sort of desperately asking people, you know, what do I do next? Where do I go? How do I get a job? I mean, I wrote to all manner of film companies, you know. I even packaged up sort of like my 20 short films onto DVD with stills and props, and made like these amazingly nicely presented like horror film boxes and shipped them off to like companies that I really wanted to work with. None of which responded, you know. It felt like a really hopeless time. But I did think to myself, I've done 20 short films now, and it's time to put the short films behind me. Like I said, some of them were 45 minutes long. I thought, how hard can it be to make a feature? You know, just do exactly what I'm doing with a short film and make it into a feature film. And in fact, I'd brought this up all through film school, and to many other people, I'd brought up this idea, you know, it's just like a short film, it's just longer. And everyone would always just laugh and be like, no, 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 no. For a feature film, you know, you need to go through funding, you need to apply for this and apply for that. And I just thought, fuck it, I got nothing to lose. I'm just gonna put my money, just put everything I have into a feature film, and it either works or it doesn't. Like I was at a point where I was kind of like it, and this it still goes for me now, you know. This is always throughout all my teenage years, the only thing that I really, really care about is films. Like if a film bankrupted me, you know, if a film injured me, I do not care. It's just like I have this maybe unhealthy obsession and addiction to making films, you know, and it's really all I'm passionate about, you know. It's just filmmaking. It's like I have to do it. You know, so like when people,
I mean, yeah, no, I respect that, and
yeah, I mean, you
know,
understand.
that kind of obsession I often see in my fans as well, and that dedication is always appreciated. You're, I mean, you espouse that spirit very well. I think I must do it my own way as well, because you are one of the hardest working guys I know in the industry, and I know I am, because we're always just up to so much shit. It's unbelievable. So with Deadman Apocalypse, then, we'll go into figures, what to protect your privacy with all these things with the budgets, but it'd be fair to say that Deadman Apocalypse was very micro budget as your first film, and was it self-financed at all?
Yeah. I'll be totally honest about the budget on this one. Literally, the way this film came about. So, like I say, I came out of film school. I got a job doing admin in I don't know what the company is, but it was like it was a shitty admin job. And I sort of looked at the money I was making, and I thought, right, if I stay here for a certain amount of months, I might have a bit of savings where I can put a bit of money aside. I saved up. In fact, I did a Kickstarter for a feature film about Satanists, and the Kickstarter, I was trying to raise something like £6,666 or something, because it's about Satanists, right? And probably more fittingly, I only raised something like £666. So I had took a completely botched Kickstarter campaign. So I took that £600 and I took a little bit of the other money I had, and for about somewhere between £1.5 grand to £2 grand, that was the money I had to do.
Wow.
So right, that's a little bit more than I'd spent on any of my short films. My most expensive short film was £1.5 grand. But in fact, my sort of last two short films, one was £1,500, the other one was £300. Those were the budgets, and I shot them kind of side by side. And the £300 one was better, more professional looking, more slick, more polished. And that still is kind of my opinion on budgets now. Is budgets are just so irrelevant, you know. People really think that they know what they're talking about when they go, oh, the budget was low, the budget was this, the budget was that. Budget just needs to, unless you're doing the accounts on the movie, budget is completely irrelevant of any film, like as far as a viewer is concerned.
I agree with you very much. I mean, and that yeah, totally. I know from my experiences as a freelance producer before Hex as well. I was producer on a kids movie. I had a budget of $8 million. I was hired, you know, part of a team of producers, and you would see where the money was spent. And ultimately, as a filmmaker, you look at the screen. You know, does it show? You know, and how much does it show? Does it justify 8 million, 4 million, 2 million, 1 million? And at the end of the day, much like yourselves, it was just a case of like, you know what, I can make something good enough
Yeah.
for a fraction of the budget. Um,
Yeah.
so no, good for you.
People are obsessed with budget though, and it's just like they go on and on about budget, and it's like, look, I could lie to you and say that my last feature costs, 2 million, but even if it was 2 million, you average Joe don't have the knowledge to understand how 2 million actually breaks down when you're making movies, so
oh
what
yeah,
do you know.
especially in industry terms, because the cash budget for most of those films are a fraction of their advertised budgets.
Yeah.
In the case of the film that I was freelancing for, that cash budget was pretty much that, but it was a unique set of circumstances that saw that particular film get made that wasn't part of the industry norm. It was privately funded. It was a private, let's call it almost like a private project, but still a commercial film that was released. But like for films of 20 million, 40 million, 80 million, film isn't the only industry in the world that tells its consumers how much a product costs for a reason. It's the reason is they want you to think it's more valuable, but those budgets are for, tax purposes, goodies, all that kind of shit. So it does perpetuate an illusion that films have to be a certain budget. So you'll go to Cannes and you'll meet low budget filmmakers, low budget, that might have public funding and whatnot, and they're going around saying, yes, my film's going to cost €1 million or 2 million euros. That stars, some kind of C-rate TV actor from Emmerdale or something, and you're like, yeah, right. Like you could buy a fucking 20 bedroom mansion for like $2 million. You're going to spend a shitty low budget film. Nope.
Yeah.
Cash budget 10%.
Budget talk aside, Deadman Apocalypse is a film that had a really tiny, pathetically sized budget, which is a problem. It is too little to make the film. I do look back and think maybe I was a little bit crazy doing that movie. But like I said, I was in a position where I had nothing to lose. I had this bit of money. I was desperately asking around, what locations can I use? Just desperately trying to get some way of making a feature film. Like I said, the satanic film wasn't working out. I had to go back.
If I cut in, I mean, Deadman Apocalypse, just for you guys at home, post-apocalyptic kind of horror thriller survival film based on a labyrinth underground where people have to live to survive. I actually thought you did a really good job. You had built sets as well. So it has a great claustrophobic vibe. And I think folks in the UK and the US can watch Deadman Apocalypse still on Amazon Prime. I think, is it available?
Yeah, it's on DVD and Blu-ray, sort of all over the place. I mean, the film went on to be, I guess, successful in that it's everywhere. In the UK, kind of thankfully, it's not so available. It comes on and off Amazon Prime.
Right.
And in the US, it's on Prime, on DVD. I just ordered a Blu-ray from Germany because I've never owned a Blu-ray copy of it, and I wanted to sort of check it out.
Well, I thought it was good. I mean, obviously, it shows just a peak of the potential that you realize as you develop as an artist, in my opinion. But it's a good start, though. It's a good, confident, low budget horror movie. It's superior to most.
If you're someone who's interested in like micro budget movies in the vein of like things like Cube, for example, like Cube was a huge, even when I was making my short films, Cube was a huge inspiration. And I made 2 of my short films that I made. One was entirely set in a box, basically just like Cube. And it had these girls inside these boxes, and they had to basically communicate over an intercom system and press buttons that would determine which one of them was going to be crushed alive in the box, because the box like closed until they were, liquid. And I did another one set in a sort of air duct system where, again, we had one tunnel, which was a tiny little air duct. And every time the girl turned the corner, it was just back down the same tunnel, but there was a creature chasing her around and fire and blood and all this sort of stuff. So I've always been interested in these single location type things. Cube was like a revelation when I watched the movie and I found out it was one cube. I was like, I mean, Cube is a mind-blowing film for any like aspiring indie filmmaker, because it's a film shot in a cube. You know, it's the dream. You know,
Yeah.
just to be able to make this whole huge story in this one room. So with Deadman Apocalypse, that's basically what happened. I was walking down the street. I looked up at some scaffolding. There was like an interesting wooden tunnel made out of scaffolding that went all the way up this huge tall building. And I thought, that looks nice visually. If I could just build that tunnel somewhere, all I would need for the film is the tunnel. I just need, because I had no money. And then somebody was willing to allow me to use their cow shed to build this tunnel. And that's kind of all I had, a cow shed, some wood, so we did a 17-day shoot. Nobody was paid. I put my heart and my soul and everything into the movie, you know. And I literally, this is worth noting, is when the Satanist film didn't go ahead, I looked what is coming out next summer that is sellable. And there was Mad Max Fury Road, and there was Star Wars. And I thought, I need to make something where it's apocalyptic, Mad Max looking, where people are shooting laser guns, and there's a sort of melodramatic story where it's like fathers and sons and empires, and even though this is all in a cowshed, you know.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. And I think you achieved that. The Deadman Apocalypse also introduces us to a long-time collaborator of yours as well. Is there a cult artist, performer, and actor, Barrington De La Roche, as well? And he always warms my heart whenever I see him in. He's like your Bruce Campbell from the Evil Dead series, you know.
He is, yeah. And in fact, Barrington had worked with me since my short films, even. So the satanic feature film I was trying to do, it was actually a sequel to a short film that I'd done. It was a 35-minute short film called God Will Fall, and I needed to hire a Satanist, someone to play the leader of the satanic cult. And Barrington De La Roche comes wandering into Ealing Studios one evening for a casting session, and he's telling me he's into black magic and he used to do Satanism and he used to speak to the devil, and he's like, the devil was my friend and all this sort of stuff. And just bonkers audition, and obviously he had to have the job.
Yeah. I would have done the same thing in those circumstances. And in Barrington's case, it's probably true. So you finished Deadman Apocalypse, and is that the original name, Deadman Apocalypse?
No, I made it under the title Labyrinthia.
Labyrinthia / Deadman Apocalypse. So when that's done, the film that comes after that, I see from IMDb, it's just a year later, Escape from Cannibal Farm. Did the success of Deadman Apocalypse, did that help you source funding for Escape from Cannibal Farm? Was that self-financed as well, or was that co-financed with a distributor? Or
it was self-financed. And what happened was, when I was making Labyrinthia in this cowshed, in the evenings, I would be stood outside getting some fresh air because it was so cramped in the cowshed, and the tunnel is so small you have to be on your hands and knees. So it was like quite a horrible environment to work in. So I'd be stood out on the farm getting some fresh air. And one of my friends who also plays all my monsters, Sam, he was wandering around the farm, covered in blood, and he was wearing this sort of Leatherface looking skinned person's face on his face, which is actually from the exact same mask that I used in Labyrinthia is in Escape from Cannibal Farm. So while I'm standing there thinking, oh God, don't let me get back in that tunnel, in that cowshed, I was literally thinking, here I am in my head thinking, all I have is a cowshed, all I have is a tunnel. This is all I can make. But I'm standing there thinking, well, I could have actually utilized this entire farm, actually, and it would have looked better than the tunnel. And I'm watching Sam wandering around with like a machete with a skinned face on his face. And basically Cannibal Farm was kind of like born then. I was like, shit, this is what I should have done. I should have made a film on a farm, some sort of Texas chainsaw type of thing, but set in Britain. So that was how that came about. And so I finished Labyrinthia. I edited Labyrinthia. There are two key things I did to sort of get it noticed, which now they seem really obvious, but back then, and maybe to any like aspiring filmmakers that watch this didn't seem obvious. But I made a trailer for the film, put it on YouTube, And I also wrote to this digital filmmaker magazine, and they did like a 5-page spread all about Labyrinthia. And from the magazine and the trailer, I randomly out of the blue got contacted by a company in LA called Empress Road Pictures. They wanted to get the rights to the film off me. So I was 21 years old, and they just Skyped me, and I'd never spoken to anyone really in the industry. And I just said, you can have the film. I'll send you all what you need of the film. You can sell it, but just I'm never going to have enough. I'm never going to have money to give you. Don't ever ask me for money, but you can make as much money as you want from it, And obviously, I see a certain amount of money back from it. And so off they went with the movie, and I was like, oh my God, here I am, straight out of film school, thinking it's going to take me 10 years to climb this sort of ladder that everyone tells me about. And then in 10 years, maybe I can finally make movies again. But I thought I was in for a good 10 years of working in admin or whatever, And I'm like, oh, this movie actually sold. But then also there was a bit of panic, like, shit, that movie is sold. That movie is going to be seen by people. I didn't think the movie would be seen by anyone, really, aside from all my short films were seen by my friends. I did not think this film would be on DVD or whatever, So then there was like an immediate thing of, well, I don't want to do science fiction, post-apocalypse, low-budget movies set in the cowshed. That's not what I ever pictured as being like the first film that Charlie Steeds puts out there.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh shit. So I was like, I need to really, as quick as I can, make a horror film, because that's what I want to be doing, is making horror films. So when I talk about my films to people, I almost never ever mention Deadman Apocalypse. It's kind of like, I see it as like a stepping stone, really.
And there we've gone to talked about it for 20 minutes on your interview. I'm sorry, Charlie. I didn't have the notes. I didn't know. But Escape from Cannibal Farm is, that is the classic sum of its parts, the inspiration from survival, horror, slashers, and as you mentioned, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And we're introduced to some other collaborators of yours as well in that. Kate Speak and David Lennox, who I've got a soft spot for as well. He's marvelous. And it's great. You show in Escape from Cannibal Farm and other films a great ability to display violence and adrenaline-filled action. When these things swing chains or weapons or people take injuries, you really feel them. There's a grit to it. So was Escape from Cannibal Farm self-financed then, or did you get a company on board, or?
Yeah, so basically what happened was, because Labyrinthia had come out, I did basically the same thing. I took my own money and I threw all of my own money, but in a much, much bigger way, because this time I knew the film was going to come out on DVD. I knew that whatever I made, I mean, this was kind of mind-blowing to me at the time, but I knew whatever I was going to make was going to be seen by people. And so on Labyrinthia, I had, only $1.5 grand or so. On Cannibal Farm, there wasn't a massively, massively bigger budget, but everything I had, I threw into it. So it was kind of nuts. So I'd managed to get out of admin, and I was doing corporate videos for the company Mountain Warehouse. And it was quite a well-paid job for a 21-year-old. And so I was putting all this money aside, and then I wrote the script for Cannibal Farm. I knew I was going to make this movie. I quit the job. I spent all the money and all of my overdraft, and I moved out of my house, so in London, so I was not renting anywhere, and went and made the film for 22 days and literally spent everything I had, I put into this movie. And so by the time the movie finished, I had no job, something like -2 grand in my overdraft, no money, no way of getting money, nowhere to live. But I had the film, and that's really all I gave a shit about. And I really put my all into the movie. I mean, we wrangled every location for free. I roped in family to help with accommodation and giving me props. I used my granddad's motorhome, you know. Really looking back on it, if I wanted to remake that film now, it would probably, like, in the way I do things now and I pay people and stuff like that, it would probably cost me more than I've ever spent to make
Yeah.
the film, because
I,
there's so much in the movie, you know.
I mean, look, this is good stuff for filmmakers to hear. There will be some people listening to this, and there might be some that are like, "That's not fair. You know, everything should be done this way or that way."
Mm.
But when you are working outside the system, then that system isn't designed to accommodate outsiders. It's only designed to reward folks that are invested in the system. So yeah, you could be paid one rate. Um, and that's all fine and dandy because that's the minimum rate you'd be guaranteed by your connection, you know, in London or something like that. If you're out in the middle of nowhere trying to do it, then you have to do what you need to do with folks who share that passion, to try and break your own way into the industry. It might not be the London industry, it might be the international independent film industry, which of course, you know, we are both a part of. So Escape from Cannibal Farm, I thought it looked really good. You know, I thought it looked like a slick, gory slasher. And when I watched it, I always remember I kind of like having a kind of smile like I do when I watch your films, because there's a love for the genre that is evident in your work, which I think isn't in the more kind of humorless or obviously or cynically meta films of the more commercial side. You know, you wear your love of the horror genre shamelessly on your sleeve and in a respectful way, that doesn't take the piss of the genre, even when you are, you know, using humor as well. It's always reverential. It's really good. I mean, for any horror fans that haven't watched any of your movies, you know, watch Charlie Steeds. He is a genuine fan and a great horror artist. So, Escape from Cannibal Farm. I thought, to me, it looked like a good, straightforward commercial horror product. There is a part of me that's thinking, at this time, the industry was shifting a lot towards paranormal, supernatural thrillers rather than gory horror. I love both, of course, and you need both, but the market doesn't care. Was that a problem at all with the sales or marketing for, or did it find an easy place in the market once it was finished?
Yeah, well, the thing that the sort of blessing and the curse of Cannibal Farm is that there's an obvious sort of connection to, like, it's ripping off the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's cashing in on Leatherface, you know, and it was actually kind of unintentional. You know, obviously Texas Chainsaw Massacre was an influence. The idea was like, let's do something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but we'll set it in Britain. But there was also, I mean, it's almost a 2-hour long movie. And it's like, my thing was, let's make everyone think that it's going to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So you think you know where it's going. And then it becomes something totally different as it goes into it, which again, that's also a blessing and a curse, because that kind of taught me, you know, if you're going to do a Texas Chainsaw Massacre ripoff for no money, just do a Texas Chainsaw Massacre ripoff. Give the horror fans what they want. If you watch Cannibal Farm, you're not really going to get any cannibalism, really, because it's so unlike Texas Chainsaw Massacre in every way. But when I was filming it, and like I said, I was just using a mask that was used on Labyrinthia. You know, nobody's ever watched Labyrinthia and mentioned Leatherface, you know, even though the mask is on the screen in that movie. But this time round, I'm looking through my camera, there's the mask, there's a chainsaw though, and we're on a farm, and I'm looking at it like, this looks like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, I'm looking through the lens like, wow, this looks kind of, it just looks like Leatherface. It looks like I'm doing a Leatherface movie. And then that has gone a long way to help the movie get places, because, for example, places in America that was stocking the DVD, like Walmart, for example, it's an absolute no for gory horror that involves cannibalism and stuff. Maybe ghosts they stock. You know, this is back in 2016 or 17. It was like, maybe supernatural stuff they would have had on the shelves, but it's a hard no for chainsaws and cannibalism and gore. And you just don't put cannibal on the title of the DVD, you know. But there's an exception because they do stock Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and that's popular. And so people were literally saying, we don't stock this type of thing, but because it's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, we'll stock it.
Ah, nice.
So
Right,
we
okay.
sort of slipped through a gap in the market, I guess. And then, of course, people were coming to the film then because people love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's a catch-22 because horror fans they hate you for ripping off Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but they'll watch it because they love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But it's like, okay, so it's like you can't win either way. But
And it's not something Roger Corman wouldn't have done. I mean,
yeah.
it's something Roger Corman always did.
Well, I think the important thing at the end of the day is the film is nothing like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in any way.
No, it's not. I mean, I've watched it, and apart from the fact that you see in the marketing an angry-looking farmer who has a propensity towards violence and gore, it's not. So is that film easily available to view in the UK at all? Is it on video on demand, or can you buy it from your website? Or
yeah, it sort of is, because you can just go on amazon.co.uk and you can order it.
And in the US, it's available just like wherever, really.
Yeah, US, all my films are really easily available in the US. The UK was like a hard nut to crack for a few years. It started with Cannibal Farm. We sold the movie to 88 Films for the UK. They're one of my favorite distributors, being a collector of these old obscure 80s movies, like B movies. When 88 Films said, we like the look of this, me and the cast and crew were over the moon, and the deal. And then there it was, it popped up, it was coming to Asda, it was coming to Amazon. We counted down the days practically to when it was coming out on Amazon, and then the day arrived and nothing happened. And still to this day, they've never released it. As of now, they own the UK rights. They've never released it. They've never done anything, not even on digital. So it's kind of a bit of a heartbreaking lesson to learn that people they can take your film and hold it hostage, basically. People in the UK have not seen this film because those distributors fucked up, and it's a nightmare for the rest of us.
It's a very difficult thing, that handing over something that you've invested so much time and passion in to another company for the sake of, a digital signed document or contract. And then, for me, it's one of the reasons why I've always fetishized the special edition packages that we sell. But there's a disadvantage with my approach, which is that, the deals you get offered, obviously bear in mind that you've got this fancy version you're selling. And so, you kind of get fucked over one way or the other, and as wriggly fish, we try to work out how the hell we can somehow make money and also get, our projects seen,
Yeah, because I admire your collector's editions, though, I've kept the rights to do my own collector's edition of Cannibal Farm. So I do also have myself to blame for the reason nobody in the UK has managed to get hold of a copy. But I just never have had the time to release it, I've not had the time yet to put it all together, but I've held back a load of like special features. I've got 4.5 hours of behind the scenes footage.
That's incredible. So do you have the rights to all your films in that, especially, or at least from Cannibal Farm onwards? Or
I kept the rights to release a collector's edition exclusively through my website for Cannibal Farm and for the House of Violent Desire.
Cool.
That's it, though, I think. And ironically, they're the two that have failed miserably in distribution terms, for the UK. But like I say, there's a Scandinavian release of Escape from Cannibal Farm. It's actually my favorite release of the movie. It's got like the best front cover and stuff. And that's available. It's Scandinavian, but it's region 2, so you can watch it in the UK.
Oh, cool.
Prime, it'll arrive the next day. So it is available. And the film went on to do really well in the USA. Like, it's been one of my top selling movies in the USA and stuff like that. And then when the trailer came out, somebody online re-edited my trailer, and instead of saying Cannibal Farm at the end, it said Leatherface, because there was a new Leatherface movie coming out. And
Wow.
the trailer went viral, and in the space of a few days had millions and millions of views. And I was getting, if you went on YouTube during this couple of weeks and typed in Leatherface trailer, there'd just be endless like reaction videos to the new Leatherface film, which really shows you how massive a fan base Texas Chainsaw really has.
That is brilliant, and it must have been so much fun as well. I love seeing little reaction videos get made, because if there's one thing us filmmakers don't actually get is a lot of well, you maybe get fan feedback in the form of, like, if you can call them fans, you get the odd asshole and letterbox or whatever. But like, you get nice folks as well. But my favorites is when you see genuine horror nerds making like little videos, maybe in their like little man caves or nerdy hideouts or whatever, just talking, about what they like. We're doing reaction videos. Yeah.
That's us.
That's us. Oh no. So the success then of Escape from Cannibal Farm was mixed in the UK, but very positive in the US. And we get to the film that was then produced next year. We're going to 2018, the Barge People, and that is a slasher survival film that takes place among a group of holidaymakers who travel on a canal boat through the English countryside, only to find themselves the victims of fishmen like hoodlums. And it has a great kind of it kind of has a kind of Texas Chainsaw Lovecraftian kind of vibe. I think it's great. And also the Barge People features one of the most hilarious performances by your good friend David Lennox as well. And Kate Speak as well. It's got some really great practical effects as well, and incredible set building that you did. I honestly thought you filmed in a real canal boat. I was like, that was a set.
Yeah. Well, ever since the days of doing Labyrinthia and my short films, I've always loved set building. I love the control you can have over every element of the set. And so I'd shot Escape from Cannibal Farm all on locations, and this is a lesson I'm still sort of coming to terms with, but locations, they do look so much better. If you can shoot your film just on locations, they're going to look far better than your set is going to look. But in a set, you can do particular things. And for the Barge People, to have shot in a real barge or inside a real narrowboat, it would have looked better. But what you have to remember is, in the middle of Barge People, there's a great big barge massacre sequence where there's slime and blood and walls get smashed in, and we obliterated the interior of the set. And it literally looked like it was just devastation on the last day. I mean, in fact, on camera, you can never quite see on camera quite the level of devastation that you're actually causing to the set, because, one person getting blood spraying out of them, there was 10 takes of that. So what you don't see is this pool of, 2 inches thick of blood on the floor of the set. So in a location, it would be impossible. But yeah, so for the Barge People, we built the interior of the narrowboat, but we also mixed it with a lot of locations. The way the film came about was I was literally on the set of Escape from Cannibal Farm, and my lead actress, Kate, said, this film, and looking at the rushes, it gives me this vibe that I remember from a script I read for this film called The Barge People. And I immediately liked the name, The Barge People. And she pitched it to me as sort of like, this film of this group. They'd gone on a canal boat holiday, and it was written by her mate, Chris. They run into these sort of mutants, and it was a bit sort of Eden Lake, a bit Hills Have Eyes, and I liked the idea of it. And so I said I'd read the script. I met with Chris, and at this point, I had only self-funded my movies. So Chris saw my movies, he liked what he saw, and I said to him, if you can find the money, you know, I'll make it. I'll direct it. I'll do it in this way that I've been doing things with very low budget, self-funding, you know, but this time round, you can find the resources, you know. And so we were able to get a small budget together thanks to Chris and a friend of his. We were able to get like quite a modest sized budget, but now I was making films with somebody else's money, which to me was like, wow, I don't have to work for 6 months and then blow all of my savings and every penny I have on my movie to make it happen. Now,
I mean,
just
that's a huge and a very, very important transition in the career of every film producer, independent film producer. And, you know, not everyone even manages that. There are folks whose entire lives are spent toing and froing between jobs, never quite being able to work full time as a film producer and doing all that. So the fact that you achieved that at that age as well, because you're still in your early 20s, basically, or mid, roughly, or early, really. I mean, that's brilliant, you know, I mean, and hats off. But you see, that's what makes your achievements and career so unique, though, and worth talking about, because, you know, I can't really think of many folks like you. I mean, I can think of you, and
basically, like, this is, you know, I was saying about I like to sort of challenge myself with each new film that I do. The Barge People was an exception, really, because the reason I was sort of got involved with the project in the first place is because there was a similarity to Cannibal Farm. You know, I love this sort of like rough, gritty, Texas Chainsaw style, backwards horror. I do love that type of horror. And so the Barge People, basically, I was taking somebody else's money, but I was confident that I knew what I was doing. We were going to go back to the same area we shot Cannibal Farm, and we were going to shoot in the same way, same camera, a lot of the same cast, and just do, basically, we were going to repeat what we just did, you know.
yeah.
With a few, because we had more money now, we could add a few little touches, like, for example, the Barge People could be, you know, creatures with creature masks on, and we could build the set of the narrowboat, and we could have more people, and we could pay people for the first time, even though it wasn't very much.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how that one
So
went.
it was a change on all fronts then. Everything was getting a bit more, I guess you could say, inverted commas, professional.
Yeah.
So the Barge People, I think, is great. I mean, I really enjoy the Barge People. It's great fun. And it's got, so again, some brilliant visceral action sequences in the last act, which I think are fantastic. Also, as perhaps your first feature film really to show that Lovecraftian influence as well, that maybe arguably you do actually with Deadman Apocalypse, really, but in any case, it comes through most vividly in terms of your feature films. With this as well, which is great fun. So the Barge People, I remember seeing that for sale at the Cannes Film Market. I was at Cannes, and it was with Raven Banner, a respectable horror sales agent, and then they were pushing the product along with others. It also premiered at Fright Fest as well. Was that film your most commercially successful to date? Or from the two you've done before? How did that go, and how did that impact what you would do next, The House of Violent Desire?
Yeah, well, basically, the film, it did teach me, like, the Barge People taught me a lot. This is what I'm saying. Like, I most value with each film. Obviously, I want the film to be good at the end of the day, but I most value the lessons I learn. And so the Barge People was the first time and the only time I've directed somebody else's script so far, because writing is my number one passion. Like, that's what I most care about with all my films, is I write the script, that's my passion, that's my love. And then making the film is just because, you know, it's a script, it's not a novel. I need to then I'm driven to make it into a film because of my love for the script that I wrote. So that's always my thing. So now having somebody else's script, I did actually get about 3 days into the shoot, and that buzz that you get from seeing your own script come to life just wasn't there, because it's
Ah,
somebody else's
right.
movie.
Okay.
And so when it got to 3 o'clock in the morning and you're doing a night shoot, I was starting to realize what the adrenaline rush that carries me through the day with my directing and all the ideas that come to me throughout the day, really they're related to my writing. So suddenly on the spot, I had to learn how to find that love and passion from something else, like somebody else's script. I'd read the script, I liked it, and I thought I liked it enough to direct it. But on set, I was learning, you can't fall back on your writing skills, because the thing is, when I write everything in there. I write the lighting, I write the angles. It will literally explain all of this in my script. I kind of write it as like an absolute plan of this is how the film's going to be. The colors that are involved, the way the locations look, it's all in there. And on set, when I'm 10 days into a shoot and I'm exhausted, it's fine, because I got the script. I just look at the script and I just do what the script tells me to do, because even though I wrote it, it's like, that's it. I just follow that. But with this one, I had to learn how to just direct, if you get what I mean. It's like, I couldn't fall back on my writing. My writing wasn't there to explain it to me. I just had to learn the skill of directing. But that was really fun, because when it came, for example, to a scene like in the middle of the film, things go crazy and there's this huge attack on the narrowboat and all the barge people burst in and there's a massacre. On the page, the massacre was crazy, but as a director, I could go through that and shot list and go, how do I make this massacre? As a director, how can I better the writer? Like, how can I take what the writer's suggesting and say, no, I'm going to improve on this and make it even crazier. So to add in, right, let's have a character smashing through a wall and into the next room, and let's have blood not just sort of spurt out, but let's have geysers of blood spraying up and hitting the ceiling, and all this sort of stuff. And just that was how I could sort of, Barge People is a film where I could look at it and see my directing and understand my value as like a director coming into a project, and giving it my touch. So yeah.
No, fair enough. And that's an important thing to always bear in mind, because it is a challenge. Sometimes, not even just with when I was directing, but when I was producing, was to try and keep things alive inside your head, because that passion wasn't there. I think as well in your career, it's so easy to go down the rabbit hole for things that are more successful, maybe in terms of, you think, credibility, perception, critical praise, or commercial in terms of money, that can take you away from your love, and then very quickly it can nosedive the energy that you have. And I guess as filmmakers, independent filmmakers, we're quite a unique breed to actually want to write, produce, finance, and direct. People don't normally sign up for all 3 or 4 of those tasks,
Yeah.
So the Barge People, what was its how was its performance in the market? Did it do well? And if it did do well, or if it didn't do that great, did that influence at all the House of Violent Desire?
Well, it was released during COVID, so it came to DVD whilst we were all in a lockdown over here and in the US. I mean, it came out with RLJE, which is a huge distributor in America. Came to Walmart on both DVD and Blu-ray. So in some ways, it's been like quite a prestigious release for me. Like you said, a world premiere at Fright Fest. I'd been desperate to get into Fright Fest. Raven Banner are the people who hooked me up with Fright Fest. And that was fun. And it's nice to it's nice for the film to be sort of treated in this sort of a way, and championed by Raven Banner. But at the same time, not sort of majorly, there's not really a major difference from my other stuff. I mean, in terms of the quality of the film, the one thing I was going to say about you know, it being written by somebody else, while I was on set, I was kind of thinking at times, this writing is quite different from what I do. Like, some of it seems mundane to me. It seems too simplistic. But what it really taught me, you know, prior to the Barge People, I'd made 2 films that they had a 2-hour runtime almost, and they were very complicated horror films where I was throwing everything into them. The Barge People, actually, when it was all cut together, I think it was like 68 minutes or something. A year later, we went back and shot an additional 10 minutes just to bump it up to like a 79-minute runtime.
Wow, right, okay.
But it's just a straight to the point horror movie. And like what I was saying about with Cannibal Farm, if I'd just given people cannibals on a farm, they would have been happy with that. I'm always, or at least in these early days, I was thinking too much about, how do I subvert a horror fan's expectations? You know, how can I take people on a ride where they go, oh, this guy, you know, not only is he making fun horror movies, but, you know, it's clever, something new. I was way too sort of up my own ass about trying to think about how to do that. So we're resulting in like a 2-hour long movie where really we could have just had a 75-minute movie with some cannibals on the farm.
Yeah.
It would have been a bigger success. But Barge People was that, you know, it is literally, they go to the canal, they meet the mutants, and there's a massacre, and they have to fight to survive. It's simple, straight to the point. You know, I was really inspired visually by films like Long Weekend to make it like kind of exploitation looking. The guys who did the soundtrack did a fantastic job of giving it that really authentically VHS synthy vibe. And so I think that was the appeal of it.
How was the film experience at Fright Fest? Was that great, or was it okay? Or I've had I've played it, and you have as well. Played at lots of horror film festivals, and the reason I ask this is because a lot of filmmakers see the chance of premiering at a distinguished film festival as like a crown of glory, and that it will just be a beautiful thing. And it is, but oftentimes there's caveats. Things go wrong with projections. You'll have fans that love it, but you'll also have, you know, bloggers to argue. You know, I mean, it's a weird mix of experiences that aren't always positive for a lot of filmmakers, but they don't expect any negativity. I mean,
the whole Fright Fest experience was amazingly positive. I think our film was the first screen to sell out. In the screening, people were sat on the steps of the cinema because all the seats were filled, you know, and the film played well. Everybody seemed to love it. We went and did a Q&A. It was all round really good fun. But the only thing I would say about the Fright Fest thing is when I made Cannibal Farm, you know, I put my heart and soul into the movie, and then I entered it into Fright Fest, and had it played Fright Fest, it would have like meant the world to me. Like, it would have done this thing of you know, you like you were saying, you think a film festival sort of is this crowning achievement, you know. Well, had Cannibal Farm, which nobody knows about this film, nobody's championing it, nobody's supporting it, it's just me on my own making the best horror movie I can make and trying to get it out there in the world. Had that got in, I would have been over the moon. By the time Barge People was done, and it's like, you know, it's got Raven Banner, and you know, I didn't submit the film to Fright Fest. I was kind of done by this point. I mean, even now, I'm kind of done with like, I'm so uninterested in really what people think of the movie in the end, or like what sort of accolades you could get for the movie. You know, if there's a nice review, great, but I kind of don't care. Like my film Deathranch was released a few months ago, and I 100% love my film Deathranch. Like, I don't always love my films. There's 3 films of mine that I love, but Deathranch is one of them. And I'm so happy with the movie that I've not bothered reading any reviews because I just don't care. And that means when people send me a good review, they're like, "Oh, read this review, you know, it's glowing, it's really good." I'm not interested. Like, I've sort of realized I only care about what I think, you know. It's only
That's a
what
really,
I think of the movie.
it's a really, really strong attitude to have. And I envy that because I say I'm about 75% there, but 25% I can sometimes get triggered a bit,
Yeah.
to use a word. And ironically, it normally is from, I guess, like bloggers that make political points about the films or something like that. They'll try and like draw some kind of weird meaning to justify some kind of outrage or something like that. Obviously, my films try to, well, they don't try to be particularly edgy, but it's just, people just making their whole trade on just trying to provoke controversy. And it's like, no, they're made for horror fans. They're not made for you to get clickbait,
Yeah. The
That's,
most important thing is, did I do what I set out to do?
yeah, yeah.
And some films, I know that I achieved exactly what I set out to do. And for a filmmaker to have an idea and images in your head and then come to the end of it and you did it, you managed to carry your baby through the battlefield and get it to the other end looking exactly how you wanted it. That is going back to like this thing of like just building your skills as a filmmaker. That's the skill, that is the achievement. So for me, I'm happy, I'm proud, I managed to get it through, and then that's the most important thing. There's no greater feeling than that. And
So it kind of comes back to that original advice then that we heard sometimes starting out, which was you have to make films for yourself, ultimately.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
that used to piss me off at the start when I heard that advice, because I was like, what do you mean? Myself?
Well, the thing
Like
is,
it's like, a tub of Ben and Jerry's cookie dough ice cream makes me happy. This film is going to be like a year of making and post and everything. That's not going to beat the ice cream.
the thing
Don't I
is,
get a trophy?
there's filmmakers out there who are a little deluded, and
Yeah.
maybe I'm one of them, but they're deluded and they look at their work and they say, oh, I'm so happy, I'm so very happy with it, but it's rubbish, and I'm the first to say there's so much shit out there in the
Yeah.
world, so much crap. I mean, part of the reason I'm friends with you is because I see your stuff, and it's one of the few like gems in all the crap that's out there in the indie world, because there's so many people just in it for the totally wrong reasons. I mean, there's a whole other thing. We don't need to get onto that subject. But yeah, if you are a filmmaker who loves films, has a passion for horror, passion what you're doing, you just love the stories you're trying to tell. If you're then happy with it, to me, that's all that matters. Because like when I made Escape from Cannibal Farm and it came out, I got my first experience of press and reviews and all this sort of stuff coming. And because my trailer had gone viral as a fake Leatherface movie or whatever, my Facebook page had like 10,000 followers or something for Cannibal Farm.
Wow.
When it came out, there was a period of about a month where every single day I would wake up to many messages of people who'd watched the film. But every morning I was waking up and there was probably a fair few who really enjoyed the film. But I only really remember every morning waking up and there'd be some other person saying, you're rubbish, this is the worst film ever made and blah, blah, blah. And that's kind of where my relationship with reviews kind of ended there and then, because it was just like, sod off, I'm not interested.
They're often part of the hashtag horror community on Twitter as well. Yep. So if we jump forward then to The House of Violent Desire, this is on IMDb listed as 2018, the same year as The Barge People. Now, if Barge People was a simple, stripped-down horror slasher with your twist on the script, The House of Violent Desire is 180 degrees the opposite direction. You've gone into reverse and you're speeding.
Hang on, I'll explain, because The House of Violent Desire shot before The Barge People.
Ah, right.
And in fact, then Winterskin, that came after The Barge People, it was shot after The Barge People, but it was funded and written before The Barge People. And so when I made Cannibal Farm, House of Violent Desire, and Winterskin. I'd made all these films, but I'd never actually watched any of the films yet because they were still all in post-production. Like
Wow.
they were so
3
fast.
films in post-production.
Well, sort of. I mean, like, so we shot Cannibal Farm in May and June of 2016. Then by the time I'm shooting House of Violent Desire in February 2017, I still hadn't finished the edit on Cannibal Farm. It was mostly done, but there was ADR and stuff to do. So even though I'd watched the film, I hadn't watched it with an audience. So I shot the whole of House of Violent Desire, having never watched Cannibal Farm with an audience. And I also was writing the script of Winterskin while I was filming House of Violent Desire. And by the end of the shoot, I'd finished writing the script. And so after all 3 scripts were written and 2 of them were shot, I then had a screening of Cannibal Farm, and I basically learned the lesson I'd later learned on the Barge People, that this is a 2-hour-long horror movie and nobody wants that. You know, this is way too convoluted. And so that answers your question about the House of Violent Desire, because it's even more convoluted.
Well, I mean, convoluted might be how one sees it if they get a little bit. I think there's enough there that you follow the story though, and the twists and turns. Yeah. I would describe it as rich. It's like a fruit loaf with lots of sultanas in it and lots of very as I might say, since I'm baking at the moment. The House of Violent Desire is a 1940s set Gothic melodrama about a family with a whole bunch of perverse secrets from one another. And that sexuality and sensuality and obsession and secrets fuels the intensity of this Gothic melodrama that takes, I think, it looks like it takes inspiration from melodramas from the 40s and the early 50s. It has great kind of like Hammer, Mario Bava-esque kind of lighting as well and production design. I think it's got a great atmosphere as well. It's one of your most unusual, over-the-top Gothic melodramas, which I love because obviously I make over-the-top Gothic melodramas from time to time.
I mean, yeah, it's one of my favorites because it's just like shamelessly indulging in my tastes. You know, whether people are going to enjoy it or not, it just indulges for the whole 2 hours, you know. But the way the film came about was, and this is important to note because we did also mention this earlier, you know, you said about people sort of judging the way filmmakers do things. And, you know, I said earlier, I was unable to pay actors and crew at the very beginning. So coming off Escape from Cannibal Farm, I said to the cast and crew, thank you so much, everyone, for putting your time and effort into this movie. You know, we did it. Like, I thought you can only do this once, like make everyone work for free for 22 days, use all these free locations. I took every resource I could possibly get for free and I threw it all into Cannibal Farm. And I said to everyone, don't come back. If I try and tempt you in a couple of months, I've got this other script and let's all do this again. Don't do it. Tell me no. You need to have a budget, professionally funded. Because the thing is, I know me, and when an idea gets a grip on me, I just run with it and I would beg, borrow, and steal to get it made. So I made sure everyone was like, no, we need the next step. I knew, as hard as it might be and as many years as it might take, get funding. You know, you can't keep self-funding them. But then one of the actors from Cannibal Farm says, he emails me and he's like, my grandfather has this chateau in France, and if we want to film there, we can go and make a film there. And I look up this chateau. I mean, I ignored it for a while, but then when I eventually looked up the chateau, thinking it'd be like a pretty little chateau, like a nice holiday villa, you know, this is not a chateau. Well, it's not what I was expecting from a French chateau. It's like a proper medieval castle.
It's beautiful. It's stunning. It's the kind of location that would have cost me tens of thousands of pounds to rent for a movie.
Stunning. It was entirely free. We shot there for 23 days. We stayed literally next door in a nice big villa with a pool. it was like a filmmaker's dream come true. Like truly, those early days of doing Cannibal Farm and House of Violent Desire, even though it was only a few years ago, it was like, because there was no money involved and stuff. It was like just a dream. You were just like a kid able to indulge in your filmmaking dreams. We had this huge castle. I realized I could take 10 people out there. So I wrote the script. It's all set in the castle. It's 10 people. And that's how we were going to do it. And the whole cast stayed there for the whole 23 days. That's a long time to shoot a movie where it's all in a castle next door. We shot a scene in the morning and a scene in the evening, you know, as in like we did 6 hours on one scene, 6 hours on the next scene. And so we rehearsed and shot it right down to, you know, we got all the coverage and rehearsal time you could possibly want. So I was really able to indulge with that film.
Yeah, as well as great. And I think the script's lots of fun. There's great monologues as well. You enjoy you have a love of theatre, obviously, as well, because the classic theatrical form of the monologue is present. And Rowena Bentley, who is as a collaborator of yours as well, I think we're introduced to her in this film, and obviously she's the star of Winterskin as well. I thought she did a really, really good job. I mean, you both did. You got a great performance from her as well in this. Yeah, it's the kind of film that no commercial distributor would finance, because you are going back to the kind of, it's like Jean Reno kind of French horror, sexual exploitation, like films like Fascination, things like that. It's great. You could only make a film like this if you were basically a massive horror fan and horror nerd, I guess, like me as well. And so I think this is I have many favorites when it comes to your films, but I can't wait to see you be able to revisit your excesses and your Ken Russell-esque indulgences. So then you also do Winterskin. The Winterskin almost has the vibe of a Western. And it has Barrington de la Roche, it has David Lennox and Rowena Bentley. It's a small ensemble film. It evokes memories of Misery, Stephen King, and it's got great dialogue, great monologues, great visceral action, and some really horrific sequences that really elevate the film and the budget. Same with House of Violent Desire. But these are both effectively, were they both basically like the last of your kind of self-financed kind of films, or that? Because they look good.
No,
I mean, so did other ones, but
yeah, no. So House of Violent Desire, talking about like it being non-commercial in its themes and stuff. That's the only film of mine that really has like truly bombed in terms of distribution. I mean, nobody's seen the film, you know. It's not available to get many places. If you're in the US, you can order a DVD, but I think the sales have been minuscule. Like, it is really a film. It's essentially a film that has never been released, really, unless you've seen it among my screenings of it. Which, like I said, I have my self-distribution rights. So I have a Blu-ray that's coming out soon, a collector's edition, where I've done a whole re-edit and there's all these new special features. I've got new artwork. So this is something that I've been slowly working on for like the last year, and eventually it will come out. But no, Winterskin was funded. It is my first film where it was agreed that I would have funding. So I was selling these movies, Cannibal Farm, Labyrinthia, I was selling them off to a company called High Octane Pictures, and they got in touch and they said, we want to fund the movies. Like, you don't need to put your own self-financing in, we'll fund them. So I'm like, okay, sounds good to me. So You know, the budgets are like, you know, 3 or 4 times higher than they were before. Still very small film budget, but much more than Cannibal Farm and House of Violent Desire. And it's somebody else's money. Now I can pay people. Winterskin was basically, I'd made Cannibal Farm and House of Violent Desire, these like 2-hour-long movies with tons and tons and tons of characters. Or, you know, I say tons of characters, but in House of Violent Desire, like I said, there's 10 characters. But those 10 characters, they could all be the main character. You know, they're not like little side characters. Everyone has their story. So that's why it gets convoluted. With Winterskin, I was like, you know, sometimes the locations look good on my film. Sometimes the location looks bad. Sometimes the performances are good. Sometimes they're a bit iffy. So let's streamline it to one location and 2 characters, essentially. Let's see if I can just nail a location, one location, 2 characters, and get it perfect. That was basically the challenge, and it was a challenge. Like it's my most difficult film I've ever made.
Wow, well, that's interesting. Given the because most of the time working in a single location with just, you know, concentrating around just 2 actors, you would assume, you know, the anecdote from that is, and it was so much, but no. So
it's a nightmare, and this is an important lesson for filmmakers. Like, you cut corners there to just be like, oh, it's 2 people in a room. It's not. It was easier making a film where you just go everywhere. To limit yourself quite to that extreme was really challenging, because at the end of the day, the film has to be good and entertaining, and it can't just feel like you're just in a room. You can't feel lazy. You have to keep things exciting. So there's guns going off, and there's dogs getting skinned alive, and there's skinless creatures coming in, and you know, you've got to constantly find ways to get it going. But the way it was funded was High Octane said, we want to fund a movie for you, give us a list of ideas. I sent them a list of ideas. Barge People was included on the list of ideas because this was before Barge People. It was at the time I was trying to get the funding for Barge People, and they liked this idea because Stephen King was really in, you know, it had just come out. And Pet Sematary, I think, was about to come out. So Stephen King was all the rage. And they said, this one sounds a bit like Misery. And then I was then able to go into the script and steer it more into Misery territory, so that when the trailer came out, people could clearly go, there's a Misery ripoff.
right.
You know? And so that's what I did. And that's how we got the funding. We built the whole cabin you see in the film is entirely a set that we built in somebody's back garden, which is kind of the start of my like true big scale set building.
It looks totally convincing. Like I had assumed, wow, did Charlie get like some kind of shack or something? Like, that's amazing, and then mess it up.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like this is the thing. Like for some people sit and watch the film and they go, oh yeah, you know, this indie filmmaker, he went to this cabin and shot this movie. But from a filmmaker perspective, you just have to look at the film and you know there's no way that could have been a real cabin unless it was being demolished or something, because the amount of blood that is spilt in that cabin that goes up every wall and everything is insane. There's so much blood in that film that when we went into the set on the last day, all the floorboards were uneven and warped because they were all swollen from the sheer amount of water and blood that had been sloshed around in there. But it's a different sort of level of excitement as a filmmaker to sit back and watch your movie like Winterskin and know that every single detail of that cabin I put there myself. You know, the design of the cabin I drew from my imagination, and then there it is, including it's a 2-story cabin, it's got the stairwell, it's got all these different things. And then I painted the whole thing myself to be the color I wanted it to be. So I've literally painted every corner and crevice of the cabin, and then all the furniture I've chosen, all the pictures I've bought and put up on the wall, and deer skulls and stuff like this. So it's sort of a different level of like satisfaction at the end when you look at it and go, that is truly a vision straight from my brain, you know.
Well, you achieved that. With Winterskin, did that perform okay on the market? And did it have any influence on An English Haunting, which on IMDb is about 2 years later, 2020?
Yeah, Winterskin, it came out with the same distributor as The House of Violent Desire. And just like The House of Violent Desire, it came out, it was a piss poor release, basically.
Yeah.
It was just came out and it did nothing because
again, it's out of our hands. We don't know. And sometimes you see them get, I've seen some of my own films with international releases get ridiculous cover art, or they've just not been pushed, or terrible trailers.
It was my first film where, I was talking about trying to ignore reviews, but it was my first one where people started coming and saying, you can look at the reviews now, they're good. There's some people are saying really good things about this film. And so it came out to almost no release. It was like nobody saw the film. There was not much press. But my problem has always been I'm so busy on to the next one by the time it actually comes out. If it comes out and 2 people buy the DVD, I'm too busy with the next one to have time to go back and try and promote it, which I'm trying to focus a little bit more on, sort of slowing down my production and looking back over what I've made and trying to get people to catch up with, no, go watch this one. It was quite fun. But Winterskin, of all my films, it has grown over the years. Like when it came out, I said to the lead actor in it, David Lennox, I said to David when it came out and it didn't really do anything, David was disheartened because he's the lead character. It's a movie we put so much passion into. And I always say, if the film is decent enough, like people will eventually come to it. And that's the thing with horror, is that a lot of the horror that we love nowadays wasn't a success at the time.
Of course. I mean, like obvious examples being The Thing, widely derided, or even sci-fi films like Blade Runner.
The Thing, The Shining. These are all films that they weren't legendary when they came out. It's taken decades for them to reach this legendary status.
You know what I think it is? It might be that when a horror film is put out first, it is put out to primarily the mainstream audience. For a film to get legs, it needs to be over time discovered by horror fans, passionate fans, nerds, and then they're the ones that build the mystique around the film based on their appreciation of it, their affection towards it, and then the mainstream looks back on what they've created, the bubble they've made around it, and then see it differently.
And so although I'm not saying that Winterskin is like a classic or anything on anything like that level, I do think for horror fans there is enough detail in the movie that it will find people who love it. And over the years, that has started to come true, because, for example, the film was released back in 2019, I think. I can't remember, but it's been years since the release. It's been a good couple of years since it came out, and there was came out to basically silence, and it's only got more popular over the years. And next year it's coming out on DVD in the UK, which is so random,
Really?
Yeah.
Are you allowed to say who's releasing it, or is it just top secret at the moment?
No, it's High Flyers who are releasing it.
Well, that's fantastic. That's great. And the High Flyers, they released some of our titles on DVD, and they actually did good cover art. And in our industry, we'll settle for okay cover art given the disasters that you can get. So that's really good. I've got a soft spot for Winterskin. I think I must have seen it 3 times so far.
I didn't pester to get it released. I didn't even mention it. They just went and found it themselves and decided, without even consulting with me, that they're going to release it. So it's nice for that to happen. And then it came out a month ago on Blu-ray in France. with
I
this
saw the
cover.
recent posts on social media about that, and the cover art looks really cool for that as well.
And so that one's been like a sort of, it gets as many reviews and comments, and I get as many messages about it today as I did 2 years ago when it came out. It's kind of like, it's not gone away. So that's kind of interesting.
Fast forward now to An English Haunting. I know by the looks of IMDb, there's 2 years, but of course, I know you have been busy working on all your films during those 2 years. Can you tell us a little bit about how An English Haunting came to be? Was it funded by the same chaps that did Winterskin and House of Ant Desire? Or was that totally different?
Yeah, this is what happened. I'd made Winterskin in January, and in December I was shooting English Haunting. So it was the same year as Winterskin. And what happened was a producer called Peter Oxley, got in touch with me and said, I'm going to give you this amount of money to make a film. It was enough to make a whole film. It was basically the same budget as like Winterskin. But this is not coming from a distributor or anyone or a sales agent. This is just a guy. I met him through Twitter. And he says, go make the film with this money.
I mean, quite a lot of films, independent films, are funded or can be funded by high net worth equity individuals. These are simply folks that have income and passion or an interest in cinema. Certainly not easier to get finance from them than it is from distributors. It's just a whole different source. But with this particular individual, they would have seen your work, seen the merits of it, and that's it. So again, for myself, a lot of our films have been financed with just a few folks that share passion for it, and I guess sometimes it's both. So that's really interesting. So you've got your budget. And then you've got your cast. So you got David Lennox again in the lead role, which is always welcome. And Barrington de la Roche, who we love. You also have some other collaborators as well for a Cornish pair, Rory Wilton and is it Emma Spurgeon Hussey? Is that right?
Yeah, Emma Spurgeon Hussey. Yeah.
Spurgeon, yeah. She's really good at in earlier films as well. Playing a very scary, violent lady.
Yeah.
So, what was the experience like making An English Haunting? Actually, let me just I'll just quickly say, gothic supernatural thriller. I love it. As well, classic haunted house film. Really nice atmosphere. Looks pretty classy as well. Like it's almost like something that you would expect from like a BBC adaptation of an M.R. James short story.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of like which of my films look the most sort of professional and slick, I think English Haunting is still like the high point of things looking really slick, which is to do with a few things. One is to do with the location. The house is just stunning. Like the location, I think people watch the film and I don't think you realize quite how unique it is to have access to this house that is like it's a house, it's a huge mansion that really should be like National Trust owned or something, but it's not. It's privately owned. And the way it came about was I was doing some corporate videos a year or so before for like clay pigeon shooting days out and stuff like that. And one of these videos happened to be taking place, like they were hosting the clay pigeon shoot day at the mansion. And so I go out to the mansion and straight away, obviously, I'm going up the driveway and I'm looking at it and I'm like, this needs to be in my horror movie, you know, this amazing mansion. And we walked the grounds and there's even like, there's like a shattered, overgrown greenhouse. And I was like thinking, I am walking around Hill House or something. Like this is just a haunted mansion just sitting there. You know, like you walk into the library and there's this huge library. It's dusty, it's filled with cobwebs, it's cold, it's not been touched in years and years. The paint is flaking off the walls, the wallpaper is peeling, there's damp everywhere. You look up, there's a huge stained glass window that is cracked. There's vines growing through it. It's overgrown. It is legitimately the real deal. Your haunted house.
Absolutely, and it adds immensely to your film. You also have nice. I mean, your films always have nice cinematography, but it was conspicuously nice. The tracks, the haze machines, just really, really, really nice. And it's a good slow burn chiller as well. It shows the range, the creative range that you can be very accomplished in, from visceral, violent, like slasher horror to like very stylized pseudo sexual exploitation horror kind of vibes, you know, the Jess Franco kind of stuff, and then, you know, something classy romantic, Victorian ghost story type kind of vibe as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I'm saying about trying to challenge myself with different subgenres and stuff. Like Cannibal Farm is a gritty backwoods movie. House of Violent Desire was then like a Mario Bava style gothic, you know, period horror. Winterskin is set in the snow. You mentioned it was sort of like a Western inspired, and it was. My inspiration was like Sergio Corbucci Westerns for the shootouts and the cinematography of the whole film, the whole look. And then English Haunting is like a subtle ghost story, you know. So
that premiered at the premiere at Starburst International Film Festival.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, and I was there. Good. So that was the one. That was the event that we were both at as well, which is also like Fright Fest, a fantastic film festival.
Yeah.
That was a good event for getting drunk at, and it was good to see your film getting the appreciation as well from a very good audience. Starburst has a lot of horror nerds that can appreciate the kind of referential kind of stuff. So an English Haunting then is privately financed. So when it came to sales and distribution, then were you still responsible for taking it to market and liaising with sales agents and distributors, or did it kind of we just deliver it to your investors and then they just did that?
What happened was the investor said, "Go have this movie, make whatever you want," which was like amazing to me, but because I could then do whatever I want. So I wrote this whole script that was like really gory, disgusting, violent. I cast it, and then there's a whole different film. And then at the last minute, somebody dropped out of the cast, and I changed my mind. And I thought, let's write a ghost story for that house. Because I was then doing something suddenly quite commercial, a ghost story, I thought, well, this is kind of like, I don't need to use the investors' money for this film, really, because it's commercial, and I was going to use this money for something really non-commercial and extreme. So what I did was I got on the phone to High Octane and I said, I've got this budget to make this haunted house film. Can you double it for me? You know, you match what my investor put in. And they agreed. They hadn't even read the script or anything, in fact. And then I went and shot the movie. They gave me their money. So I was essentially shooting a movie for double the budget.
That's great. So it's a win-win in many respects, because your investor obviously would have been presented with his cut minus but at the same time they're getting a better film, because of course you don't let any penny go to waste. I know that, you know, you put it all in front of the camera on screen, and that would have contributed. So would that have made that film, again, no need to go into the exact figures, but would that have been the highest budget film you had done so far? Or that's great, and it looks it's a really beautiful film.
And it came off commercially because it came out on DVD in America. It had really nice reviews from people, and then it's my first movie to come out in the UK. You know, like I was saying, the UK has been hard for me to get movies on the shelves. Finally, you know, I have something, just this haunted house movie that is very commercial. High flyers were looking for haunted house content, and they sort of snatched it up, you know.
And again, without the need for going into any details, but how did the film perform? Did it do okay, or?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't have anything to compare to, but it was in the shops, and I could say to my family, "Go and buy it," and they
That's the
did.
thing, because you're kind of out the loop a bit when you start working with when everyone else has put the money in.
Yeah,
You've taken the role of basically production services company and
yeah,
director. I mean, I know how that feels, because some of our productions are in progress, are like that as well. And so you're just like, yeah, I saw it in ASDA. Must have done good enough, right? I got paid, you know.
yeah.
So this is 2020 that we have the IMDb for An English Haunting. And as we look to the films that came next, Deathranch in 2020 and Vampire Virus, two films that couldn't be more apart.
Yeah.
Deathranch, an ensemble cast of young Black American actors that is produced in the United States of America, with you visiting and making that. Something that I think is a brilliant survival horror, where the characters have to fight to survive against a very unique branch of the Ku Klux Klan with a propensity for cannibalism. And then we have Vampire Virus, which is almost like a kind of 1980s new romantic, very stylized Camp as Christmas take on the vampire horror genre. But with a great pop sensibility, and is definitely one of the most aesthetically ambitious and bold visual takes that you've done with a film. So two very different films, that one being filmed in the UK and one in the United States. Can you tell us, like, how did Deathranch and Vampire Virus come about?
What happened was, I finished An English Haunting, and this is what happens: is you get to the end of editing and you're thinking, I need a job. I need somebody to fund my next movie. Up to An English Haunting, I'd had 100% creative freedom to make what I want to make. And almost now, I still have had almost 100% creative freedom. But with Vampire Virus, a company wanted to work with me. I went and met them. They had this idea for a vampire movie, but it was a very specific type of an idea. They knew that they wanted set in America, but filmed in England. They wanted a girl and a group of friends to be at a nightclub and meet a vampire woman, and then she sleeps with the vampire woman. There was just a lot that was predetermined. Usually for me, I go, oh, I want to make a haunted house film, and I have the house already. And then I go and do what I want to do there. This was different. There's a cast of 25 characters in Vampire Virus. There's all manner of locations. And I don't like setting horror films in the modern day. That's, in all the variation that I do among the films, something that turns me off is modern day horror. In fact, I hate horror set in modern day. Like, I just don't like it. Or just like modern every day, like a lot of the stuff that like comes to Shudder and things like that you watch, and you go, oh, okay, I'll give that a go, and you put it on, and it all looks like the same old shot, nice, clean and HD, no character. You can't tell the films apart. Same tongue-in-cheek, silly humor.
Yeah.
Like not quite horror, modern horror. And I can't stand those types of movies. And anyway, here I am being asked to basically make something a bit like that, set in modern times. So I go and meet with Ace Entertainment. They were the company who funded it, and they want this film. I agreed to do it. And then I go to hire my cinematographer, but he's busy for a couple of months. So it delays production a couple of months. So I got a couple of months free. So suddenly I realize in this couple of months, I'd also been talking to some other producers who were trying to give me some money to make something called Empire Studios. So I go to the guys at Empire Studios and I say, I've got a month free. And I have a script, Deathranch, that I've wanted to make for years. It's like my passion dream project. And they didn't have much money, but what money they did have, we chucked together. I went to Tennessee, I shot Deathranch, which really was like my dream project. I'd been wanting to do it for ages. I'd been pitching it around. Nobody wanted to do a 70s style blaxploitation movie with the KKK getting massacred, and the black characters getting their vengeance. Like, it was too edgy, you know, like nobody wanted it. But for me, I was really passionate about, you know, I'm really drawn to movies, to horror movies that explore, like, you know, horror, you know, horror, like horrors going on in society. And racism is one that really, you know, makes, well, me and everyone, I should think, but it makes my blood boil, you know, and it gets under my skin. So I'd wanted to go and do something that really sort of tackles it head on. And that's why I was just so, you know, determined to do this movie. And the shoot was an absolute dream. Shot in Tennessee for 15 days, cast Americans, met every cast member and crew member for the first time when I got to America, just me on my own with my camera and some KKK hoods in my backpack. That was it. And it was an absolute dream. Then I came back to England to make Vampire Virus, and it was the opposite. It was a nightmare. The script was rough. It needed to be rewritten almost from the top, which I had 3 days to do. I almost decided not to bother with the whole thing, but went ahead and did it and warned everyone going in, this is going to be a nightmare, because you look at the budget, which was the highest budget, more than double the amount I had for Deathranch, in fact.
Yeah.
You know, look at the budget, guys, and look at the locations and the amount of characters and the crazy shit we're going to have to do in this film. The two did not add up. So I knew it was going to be hell on earth, and it was. So, and in fact, it's the only film of, I am proud of the film. I'm especially proud of all the cast, because they really carry the film, I think.
Even Sam Ashurst, our mutual friend who plays the barman. I mean, I don't know about him. I mean,
barman was a bit dodgy. He did think about cutting the barman scene.
He wanted to play his part topless. He wanted to be a topless barman.
Yeah, we had to edit a top onto him. And
to Photoshop that on. Yeah, that was good.
But yeah, so with Vampire Virus, yeah, it was kind of like, it was the opposite of Deathranch. It was tricky. And of all my films, what I was going to say is, it's the only one where I feel like, even though all the films are low budget and they're all sort of like just hanging on by the skin of their teeth to actually looking like a decent enough movie that is watchable by your general public horror fan, Vampire Virus just falls short of that. I cannot stand by the movie and say that's a good movie. I felt like, I watched it back and I felt like a hack. You know, I'm so critical of my own work, and I'm so critical of all the other indie films that I see being made around me, because I think it's good to be critical, because we all want good films being made. It's very easy to just fall into this thing of laziness. Because you can get absolute crap distributed.
See, the thing is, like, what folks don't realize, obviously, when they see a film, they think a filmmaker has just presented everything as if it was under their control. But we're not at the control of circumstances like budget and resources and deadlines and things like that. If there can be films that fall below par, that have hundreds or tens of millions of dollars, then it's a miracle that not every single independent film is an unmitigated disaster. I think, like, Vampire Virus has, like, I mean, I'm fond of Vampire Virus. I know what you mean. It doesn't embody all your virtues as an artist as much as your other films. But that being said, it's an entertaining watch, and it also has some remarkable sequences that, as a fan of 1980s kind of like new romantic kind of horror, I thought were great. Like, you have scenes in the nightclub with the vampires dancing. You have a playful sensibility where it comes to the sensuality and sexuality of the characters, that I think is camp and fun, appropriate for a vampire film with such an 80s aesthetic where neon is everywhere. It also has a mutual friend of ours, Jonathan Hansler, who was in The Devil's Machine / Automata as well, playing a cop very prejudiced against vampires in Vampire Virus. Deathranch, is a brilliant film. I think you have every reason to be extremely proud of that. It's a film that shows that budget does not rule production value when you cast cleverly and you shoot clever. It's a really, really beautiful film. And at its most intense moments, actually reminds me of films like The Green Room as well. Although you have a very, very jet black sense of humor as well, which I think is good, for this film, and it makes it a real rewatchable movie. So a really accomplished piece of filmmaking, I think, with that.
Yeah, and both of those films as well, I was saying my cinematographer was busy. So that meant for the first time I was going to make Deathranch without my cinematographer. So that sort of partnership kind of came to an end there. And I did my own cinematography for the first time on Deathranch. And I then came back and did my own cinematography on Vampire Virus for the first time. So for the first time, I took on cinematography duty, which I never thought I would be doing, but is now the way I've been doing things.
You did a great job. You did a great job. And to be honest, I've kind of found myself in a similar boat. It's funny, when you start out, you get used to your team, but of course your team slowly evolves. And when you're an independent filmmaker, you're always relying on a family of sorts around you that you can hire back in and out. And so, it's a big step to take on a responsibility like cinematography. And no, you did great. So how did Vampire Virus and Deathranch, again, without going in if any of this information is too sensitive to say, we totally understand. But in general, is Deathranch, is it too early to say yet whether they've performed well or not? Or is it, again, just not something you party to because they were kind of like higher gigs? Or
the industry is kind of like, it changes so fast and it gets difficult to judge how well or bad they're doing. It seems to me that both Vampire Virus and Deathranch are like my most popular movies. That being because, Deathranch, to start with, I edited the film throughout the lockdown, and between shooting it and editing it, the Black Lives Matter movement happened, or really kicked off, and was like a major topic in everyone's view. So when I went to try and sell the movie, nobody wanted to touch it. Even though it's a full-blown Black Power movie.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted it, And so we went to all the usual contacts to try and sell it, and they all said no.
They were just too scared of the issues. And here's the thing, look, your film, it's not like you're some kind of like SJW blogger lecturing your audience. You care earnestly about themes and ideas that relate to humanity and equality. Yeah. But you're not lecturing. And Deathranch is not a film that tries to be your school teacher or anything. It's nothing like that. It's just it espouses those ideas through the simplicity of what your characters are doing, not what they're saying. There's not like monologues or cheesy shit like that. It's just they're surviving. They're fighting against Ku Klux Klan, and that's enough. It tells you what you need to know.
Yeah, there's a way to say white racists need to die in a way that is like fun and not preachy, And that's,
it was really good of Sam Ashurst, though, to lend you all his Ku Klux Klan gear. That was really kind of him. Every
racial slur in the script, he had the idea for. I rang him up and just let him rant down the phone to me.
Well, you just wrote down all the tattoos he has on his back, and those expressions.
Absolutely.
Poor Sam. He's not really a racist, He's rubbish at making a cup of tea, but he's not a racist.
But eventually, so then 2 months passed of like silence, and it was like, I guess nobody's going to see the movie then. And then the offers started to come in, but COVID also was a part of it. It wasn't just the issue, the topics of the film was difficult. It was also that there was COVID. So as everyone sort of started back up after the first lockdown, then many offers started to come in, more offers than I've ever had on any of my films.
And that's remarkable.
now we see the film distributed in Walmart, and it's streaming on Peacock, and it's out in the UK, it's in Asda, it's in HMV. This is a film I never thought I'd see on the shelves of Walmart when I was making it. But it's been like a bit of a turnaround point, because people have always, I always have trusted these distributors and sales agents when I pitch to them. And I'm thinking, I'm the filmmaker with the bright ideas, I'm the imagination here. So surely there's something valuable that I have to sort of tell you. And when I come with an idea that I love and I'm obsessed with, that's got to count for something. But usually it was, no, you can't make a film like that. That nobody wants that type of thing. Nobody wants extreme gore. Nobody wants, even I've been told nobody wants extreme gore. I've been told nobody wants black characters in your film, and there's certainly not black lead characters. And so to watch it come out in Walmart with my 3 black lead characters on the cover, and it's, in the UK 18 rated for extreme gore and stuff like that, it's all the things I was always told that they don't want. And the distributors are perplexed. I mean, they literally said to me, I don't know why everybody wants this and they're putting in offers for this, but they are, so we're going to buy it from you. And so it's kind of taught me, like, I trusted my own gut on that one, and I put a lot on the line to just go out and make it. I wasn't like I said, it wasn't as high a budget as the rest of my stuff. It wasn't really like a paying gig for me. It was a passion project. And so, but it's paid off. And then Vampire Virus has like 5 million views on YouTube. I don't know why YouTube is like the way it's being promoted and stuff like that, but the distributors and the investors are happy. It's a hit. It's got
Can't ask for more than that.
Got the 5 million YouTube views, and they came back to fund me again with double the amount of money. So we're all happy,
That's brilliant. And now our next, the other film as well that we must mention is A Werewolf in England. So again, this is 4 films listed as 2020 on the IMDb. A Werewolf in England is a Victorian set survival horror where a condemned man is taken by a court official en route to be executed, but have to spend the night in an inn, only to discover that they might well become the sacrifice, or am I allowed to say that, to scary furry monsters, werewolves. And this takes place in a very elaborate set that you've produced to recreate a Victorian inn. It's a super gory, campy, Hammer-esque, neo Hammer kind of brilliant horror film. It's so much fun and hideous as well. So how did that come about?
So yeah, I mean, making English Haunting and Deathranch back to back was like 2 dream projects, and then making Vampire Virus and A Werewolf in England back to back were 2 awful projects, like absolute projects from hell. And so the way it came about, I met another company, High Flyers. They wanted a werewolf movie. I said, I got 3 ideas: werewolf in Victorian period, werewolf in the snow, kind of like a Yeti werewolf, or werewolf in a dystopian post-apocalypse future where the world is run by sort of like Nazi werewolf generals, fighting battles. Anyway,
I wish that was the one that had got
They liked the Victorian idea, and they said, don't make it funny and don't make it gory. And then I wrote this script, which is full-blown stupid, campy, silly humor and blood and guts galore. And like you said, I built just the biggest, most elaborate set that I've ever attempted. I mean, I didn't build it myself. It's my cinematographer and other people who come and build, do all the hard work of putting the timber up and stuff. But I did wallpaper the whole thing myself, and decorate it with furniture, and so that's what I mean by building it myself. But we built the whole thing. It's a 2-floor Victorian inn, giant staircase, stained glass window, quite badly painted by me, 4 bedrooms, big parlor room, and 3 werewolf suits, which got stolen 5 days into filming.
I remember you mentioning this to me, and I thought that was again a crisis of nightmarish magnitude. You're making a monster movie, and your monster costumes get stolen, but you handled that very, very coolly. I don't think your pulse didn't seem to go up as much as one would expect, and then you got it sorted, and you've completed your movie.
The film was completed against all odds. You know, in the film, every character that fights a werewolf, the werewolf head is the heads that got stolen, not the suits.
Right.
And the werewolf was headless. So, you know, and also the schedule was so messed up that actors are talking to each other. If they're not in the same shot, I can assure you they weren't there on the same day.
Right.
Because it's people talking to the air, you know, and then me editing it. Like, it was just such a mess, you know. And like I said, people having these fights with werewolves. The werewolves don't have heads, you know. All the shots of the heads had to be put in later with just me and my Derek, who played the werewolves. Me and Derek, just the two of us, doing days and days of shooting just to match all the shots and lighting, and then put it together. And until the film was actually done, I didn't know if it was actually going to work. But the heads of the werewolves was literally the one thing that could have been stolen that would stop us from filming.
Yeah.
If the set burnt down, we'd have found another location. If the camera broke, we could have ordered another one the following day. But the werewolf heads, yes, okay, I could have gone on Amazon and ordered, you know, werewolf Halloween mask, but these were really specific.
Yeah, no, they were high quality props that you have. I mean, you have a love for your costumes, and you make them as you know, you make them good. God knows who did that, but fuck them, whoever they are.
There's a company in Arizona, and they were like handmade, hand painted, custom made werewolf heads that could, like, you know, when they got stolen, I rang them. I said, "How fast can you just make me 3 more?" And they'd been making them for like a month, and they were like, you know, 2 weeks, give us 2 weeks, we'll get them over to you. So then there was a 2-week break where we lost all of our accommodation, all of our Airbnb deposits, all of the food went bad. So all the catering was gone. Everyone's schedule was messed up. Everyone had to have their travel paid to go back to Scotland and wherever. And I lost thousands of pounds.
All because of this one idiot that did this. And as yet, this person's never been found out or discovered, or?
Yeah, we can't say for sure who it was because we don't have like camera evidence. But we know who it was, you know.
Oh, good. At least you know then.
It's obvious who it was. They know that we know. Everyone knows who it is. And on the DVD commentary of Werewolf in England, I go into lots more detail about the whole incident and who did it. But it all paid off because I'm really happy with the film. It's bonkers. The film's absolute bonkers. And it came out onto DVD in this country, into the supermarkets. And in some supermarkets, it's still there. It's been over a year. And usually these indie films come out into the supermarket, they last 2 weeks to a month.
Yeah.
They've gone forever. But this one just keeps sticking around.
Well, that's great. And it's available to view on video on demand in the UK and Amazon and you know, elsewhere in the US. No, it's a good, and here's the thing. I mean, I've always loved werewolves. I mean, I like all monsters. And it's great to see you taking the mantle for werewolves. So that brings us to the completed films. We can't really get into the films that you've got in development, but I know you've got some great films that you're very busy working on at the moment,
Yeah.
and that there's no break to your schedule. You have multiple productions that you're working on.
Yeah.
So do I. Oh my God, no. And those are very exciting things. So as you've gone from your journey, you've gone from starting out with self-financed films and the idea of creating a brand around Temple and Dark Temple Motion Pictures, should I say. And then you've become more involved in the collaborative process, working with other companies. I mean, so have I as well. It's the same kind of thing. So how do you feel now about where Dark Temple Motion Pictures is going in the future, and where are you in a? I would assume you're in a good place, although it's always tough in the industry. You're always having to move fast to changing circumstances. So when I say in a good place, as good a place as you can be in a difficult industry, how do you feel right now, and how do you feel about the future?
Well, basically, I was saying back in the day of English Haunting 2 or 3 years ago, I would get to a point of like, you're desperately looking for where the money is going to come from next. Since COVID and since the lockdown sort of lifted, things have changed. Lots of companies come to me asking for movies now. I now say no to people because I don't have the time to do it, which is a much nicer position to be in. And I always have things, prepped for the future. As of now, there's 3 more movies that are not quite completed, but I've shot, and I know the 2 that are coming next. So my next 5 films I know, and it's nice to be in that position and have them funded. So that's good. My rules going forward, like for a film as a filmmaker, have always been like, make sure the budget is bigger the next time round, which the budget continues to grow and grow. The new one is a bit more make sure that the project I'm doing is the project I want to make. That's a luxury that you can sort of get over time, I guess, is that it's the film you want to do. So like with Vampire Virus, it was an idea where I needed to make the film. I wanted the budget. It helped me grow as a filmmaker, and it helped my projects grow in scale. Like, there were many benefits of making Vampire Virus, but as a director and writer, it wasn't necessarily as fulfilling. Because it's not my own original concept. So it's being able to sort of navigate into concepts that are way more up my street, like Deathranch, for example, something that people told me that wouldn't be a success. Being able to make something so out there like that and make it a success is sort of like where my head's at, to keep trying to do that, keep trying to make horror. It all comes down to just making original, fun, entertaining horror, and trying to break out of what the indie world tends to be doing, which is like just rip-off movies.
You don't strike me as someone that is as concerned about finding particular success or profile among the festival circuit or the hashtag kind of horror community buzz kind of stuff. You seem to be a man doing his own thing. Is that right? Is that a correct characterization? Or?
Every film that I make, I say to myself, and sometimes I say to like the team behind it, it's like, we don't have this huge budget or anything. Like, we don't have the budget of Netflix Midnight Mass or something like that. But every film has the opportunity to be a classic. It doesn't matter the level of budget or whatever. Like, if you put the energy into it, it could be a classic that we're watching in 50 years.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my mindset when it comes to, I would love to have more money. I would love to be hired by Netflix or Warner Brothers, or, I'd love to have really big scale success with a cinema release movie. But for me, my love is with movies, not with success, reviews, awards. It's just movies. And actually, I don't need any of those things to make the movie's good.
Mm.
You know,
I think that's a wise reflection, actually, which I think is a good thing for aspiring independent films, those early in their careers, to take note of.
yeah.
Because you're right, these aren't the things necessary to make movies, and that is kind of why we're supposed to be in this game. Ultimately, is a love of cinema and film.
I feel extremely lucky to be, 28 years old. For the last 4 years, I've been full-time making movies, able to make a living off it, able to work on it 7 days a week, all year round. And this just be my thing, is like indulging my love of movie making. So I'm extremely lucky, and for then the films to actually be coming out and people to be enjoying them in some cases. So that's, I'm very lucky to have all that. I do keep my eye on the future, that like, this isn't it. I'm not just gonna settle down right now. I see other indie filmmakers of my sort of level settling down. Like, this is a good living, I'm earning a good wage, I'm having fun, it's easy enough. And this is what I'm saying about each film needs to really challenge me. It's like, don't just settle down. It's like, I need to keep trying new things and trying to, try out new stuff and challenge myself. And eventually, I hope to make some classic horror movies. The reason I make horror movies in the first place is because when I was like 12 years old, I could spend a weekend with a stack of videos with grim looking covers with Freddy and Jason and stuff on the cover, put them in and just be like transported into the world of these horror movies. And just there and then I was like, this is my love. This is the kind of like the greatest pleasure in life, is to sit and be absorbed by these movies. So for me, if I can just get to the end of my career eventually, many years to come, and have some kids putting in my DVD or streaming or whatever it's going to be, and they're enjoying their weekend and being absorbed and transported into my horror world, that's it. That's all I want.
Fair enough. And on that note, Charlie, Steeds, I'd like to thank you so much for joining me as a guest on Hex Talks. And for folks watching back home, if you've not been paying attention, then it is Dark Tempo Motion Pictures, and there is a website link that will be magically inserted now so that you can check out more of Charlie Steeds' remarkable films. And thank you so much, Charlie, for your advice and for your experiences that you've shared for the film community.
Thanks for having me, Laurie.
Bye-bye.
Be sure to hit subscribe and the bell notification icon so you don't miss any of our future videos. Also, if you would like to support our channel and help us make more content, then check out the Patreon link in the video description below. Thank you and goodbye.